Hi everyone, my name is Janghee, PhD candidate at University of Colorado Boulder. Today I'd like to share with you research that I conducted with my colleague Tian, Abigail, Zimmermann-Niefield, and Stefan Voida. This work is an exploration of the gaps between reflection in theory and reflection in practice, which we found by surveying personal informatics apps. Personal informatics has become a popular way to track our experiences, thought, and behavior in everyday lives. Research in the personal informatics domain often considers reflection on indispensable activity that helps individuals generate insights for self-improvement or changes. Despite the importance of reflection, most personal informatics research does not clearly articulate how and when reflective practice occurs. Reflection is usually taken for granted in the use of personal informatics tools. That is, as long as individuals are presented with data collected about their activity or behavior, it is assumed that personal informatics tools enable individuals to reflect on data and their experiences. However, without an explicit understanding of the definition and the process of reflection, it is difficult to design technological intervention to scaffold reflection. So in this study, we propose an operational definition of reflection and investigate how the design of commercial personal informatics apps support reflection. We aim to identify the gap between theory and practice reflection and expand the possible design space of this system to more effectively support reflection. So what is reflection? The answer might not be simple because reflection is a multifaceted concept. In this work, we mainly base our research on Fleck and Fitzpatrick taxonomy of reflection because it synthesized the conceptualization of reflection with diverse literature and also from the HCI perspective. Drawing on this framework and other fundamental work in the reflection domain, we see reflection as a meaning-making process enacted through the conversation between a human being and their experiences on an object or a situation. Our study consists of two phases. First, we conducted an iterative review of the reflection literature in HCI. Based on this review, we constructed a codebook to operational each stage of reflection for the personal informatics domain. You can find in more detail about the codebook from paper. Next, based on our codebook, we surveyed 123 commercial personal informatics apps to assess how they support different levels of reflection. As a part of in-depth analysis, we downloaded and used each app at least 1 week to assess how and when design component and strategy supported reflection. As a result of our analysis, we identify personal informatics app features that serve as a precursor to each level of reflection. In this short presentation, I will talk about selected results from our work. Please consult the paper for the complete overview. First of all apps from our corpus provide a summary of data as a default landing or homepage using a variety of interfaces. And most of them also include visualization that help users easily get a sense of their data. The most common visualization we saw are longitudinal time series graphs that help users browse their accumulated data. These system-driven features might be beneficial to users since it is difficult for them to perceive and get a sense of behavioral pattern without expending intentional effort and time. Most personal informatics apps in our corpus also are using a mix of manual or semi-automatic tracking method to collect a variety of data types. While many apps allow users to describe or annotate their behavior or capture their feeling or thought, in most cases, these note fields are optional. And the prompt to provoke users' explanation is rarely found, even though asking reflection question is a key to promote transformative reflection. About half of apps in our corpus provide customized or feature for goal setting and data collection. However, most apps offer only a fixed list of attributions for tracking new items. For instance, when a user wants to add new food, only limited information, for instance, calorie burn or nutritional factor can be added to capture their eating experiences. It is likely that data collection features are mainly chosen based on whether certain data can be visualized or algorithmically processed. In the paper, we examine additional app features and explain the way in which they do and do not support reflection. But overall, we found that most contemporary personal informatics apps offer less agency to the individual user for reflecting on their data. So what does it mean? It is obvious that system-driven reflection is predominant design strategy in personal informatics apps from our corpus. So depending on which apps are user selected or tracking their data, the app selection decision pre-configured which data are collected and presented for their reflection. On the other hand, according to theory, the role of human agency in the meaning-making process is critical for reflective practice. Even though a lived informatic paradigm places an emphasis on how tracking is experienced in people's everyday lives, personal informatic apps still largely rely on machine-assisted routinization for reflective practices. So how can we close the gap between theory and practice to support the full process of reflection? We offer several design considerations in our article. First, consider a move beyond the quantity itself and consider how we can also support the quality itself. Since most data processing is based on numeric representation, current personal informatic apps often fail to incorporate nuance and complex facets of people's experiences, even though these subjective data are the important part of scaffolding reflection. So designers should consider how and what system-driven feature can be combined with the qualitative approach. Second, designers need to pay attention how personal informatics system might be customized by users, better supporting flexibility and controllability of data processing in order to empower users to make sense of their experiences. Third, to better support the mixed agency in the meaning-making process, designers should consider displaying the combination of system-driven visualization, such as those based on quantitative data, and user-driven information such as journaling responses. Lastly, we want to highlight the importance of diverse human interest in the reflective practice. While personal informatics has the potential to support critical reflection around the value of social good and sustainability, it is rare to find commercial app that does that from our corpus. Instead, these apps focus on reflection is to build instrumental knowledge for supporting individual humans' interests. We offer recommendation for looking beyond this egocentric perspective in designing personal informatics, suggesting the different type of human interest should be also considered to broaden the audience and scope of these valuable tools. Thank you for your time and point you to our paper and additional detail about our study and our recommendation.